Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of your sources, your articles, your research, your notes, and distill them into the most potent nuggets of knowledge. Today, we're embarking on a particularly profound deep dive into a document that, while perhaps frequently cited, is almost certainly not fully understood in its incredible breadth, its revolutionary spirit, and its ongoing relevance in our modern world. We're talking, of course, about excerpts from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations General Assembly way back in 1948. Our mission today is to truly unpack these 30 fundamental rights. We'll explore their historical significance, delve into their practical implications in real-world scenarios, and understand precisely why they continue to matter so deeply, influencing justice and freedom across the globe.
What's truly fascinating about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or UDHR, is that despite its non-binding nature, meaning it's not a treaty that states are legally compelled to sign and ratify, it has profoundly shaped international human rights law. It serves as an undeniable cornerstone, continuing to inspire countless national constitutions, international treaties, and human rights movements worldwide. It's not just a list of ideals, it's a powerful, enduring articulation of human dignity, equality, and, well, the inherent freedoms that belong to every single person.
That's a crucial distinction, isn't it? The non-binding nature often leads people to underestimate its foundational influence. For you, our listener, think of this deep dive as your essential shortcut to grasping the bedrock principles that ideally safeguard every single one of us. So let's unspool this incredible document, article by article, to see what foundational insights and surprising applications we can uncover. We're going to start right at the beginning with the foundational principles that truly set the stage for everything else. This first cluster of articles really lays down the basic human condition as the UDHR envisions it. First up, Article 1. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Unquote. On the surface, it sounds almost deceptively simple, yet it's arguably the most revolutionary statement in the entire Declaration. It challenges millennia of societal structures based on hierarchy, birthright, or perceived merit. Expert, how does this singular declaration, stating an inherent universal dignity for everyone, fundamentally reframe our understanding of justice and societal progress?
It's a seismic shift, truly. Before the UDHR, many legal and social systems were built on distinctions. Nobility versus commoner, colonizer versus colonized, master versus slave. Article 1 just sweeps all that away. It posits that simply by virtue of being human, you possess inherent worth. This isn't something granted by a king, earned through wealth, or dependent on your nationality or gender. It's a birthright. This core principle doesn't just challenge existing inequalities. It demands a proactive dismantling of systems that perpetuate them. It shifts the focus from privilege to fundamental equality, suggesting that true justice isn't about maintaining existing power structures, but about ensuring everyone can access their inherent rights.
So right out of the gate, it sets this incredibly high bar for how we view and treat one another. But what does this really mean for our everyday interactions? How does this deep philosophical idea translate into something tangible, say, in a specific setting like a workplace?
Well, consider a workplace or an educational institution. Adhering to Article 1 means that hiring or admissions decisions must prioritize qualifications, skills, and merit above all else. This actively pushes back against biases related to a candidate's ethnicity, their family's socioeconomic background, their gender identity, or their age. The goal isn't just to avoid overt discrimination, but to actively work towards equitable opportunities for everyone. It's about breaking down the systemic and unconscious biases that prejudice often erects, fostering a professional or academic environment that is genuinely just and inclusive, recognizing the inherent worth of every individual.
Okay. Building on that profound assertion, Article 2, Freedom from Discrimination,
Right.
takes that idea of universal equality and applies it directly to the application of all the other rights we'll discuss. It clearly states that all UDHR rights apply universally, without distinction based on race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or any other status. It's essentially saying these rights are for everyone, no exceptions.
Right. Exactly. This article is absolutely critical in combating exclusionary practices that have historically marginalized vast populations. Its significance truly cannot be overstated because it serves as a direct, comprehensive prohibition against any form of discrimination that would deny individuals their fundamental human rights. It's the enforcement mechanism for Article 1, ensuring that the recognition of dignity translates into equal access to all listed rights. Think about historical voting restrictions based on property ownership or gender. Article 2 directly condemns such practices, even if they aren't explicitly named.
Can you give us a really concrete example of how this plays out, say, in something as fundamental as education?
Certainly. In education, for instance, universities are obligated to ensure their admissions policies are not only outwardly fair, but also free from any biases that might subtly disadvantage applicants from marginalized communities. This means actively reviewing processes for implicit biases, providing support for diverse applicants, and ensuring that access to quality education is genuinely inclusive. It's not enough to just say, anyone can apply. It means actively working to remove systemic hurdles and unconscious biases to promote equal access to opportunities for all prospective students, regardless of their background or perceived status.
That makes sense.
Moving on to Article 3, right to life, liberty, and security of person. This isn't just about avoiding immediate physical threats. It's about existing freely, without fear, and being protected from harm in a comprehensive sense. To put this in context, this article is foundational because without the right to simply exist and be safe, all other rights become practically impossible to exercise. It's the prerequisite for all other freedoms listed in the Declaration.
That truly is the starting point. Without being alive and safe, nothing else really matters. It's the most primary right. And this right isn't just about individual protection. It also places a very clear and significant obligation on states and governments, doesn't it?
Precisely. This article imposes significant obligations on states to actively safeguard individuals from various threats. This ranges from protection against violence and crime, to preventing arbitrary detention, to ensuring conditions that support a safe existence. We see the contemporary relevance of this when governments implement comprehensive public health policies to protect citizens from pandemics, or when they invest in robust security measures designed to counter threats like terrorism. It also extends to grassroots efforts, such as communities advocating for safer public spaces, think of well-lit streets, secure public transportation, or community watch programs specifically designed to prevent assaults and ensure everyone feels secure in their daily lives, allowing them to exercise other freedoms without fear.
Okay, then Article 4, freedom from slavery or servitude, seems almost archaic, something from a history book. But unfortunately, it's profoundly relevant even today. It prohibits forced labor and human trafficking in any form. It's not just about the historical chattel slavery, is it?
You're absolutely right. While we might think of slavery as a historical relic, the chilling reality is that it persists in modern contexts under different guises. This includes complex, exploitative supply chains where workers are trapped in debt bondage, or individuals forced into domestic servitude, sexual exploitation, or forced marriage. It's a stark reminder that this foundational right is far from universally realized, and its violations are often hidden in plain sight, making it incredibly challenging to detect and eradicate.
So, given its modern manifestation, how can an everyday person support this right? Perhaps without even realizing it or feeling overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the problem.
Consumers have a powerful, albeit often indirect, role here. By consciously choosing ethically sourced products, for example, in industries like fast fashion, electronics, or agriculture, you directly contribute to reducing the demand for goods produced through forced labor. This involves looking for certifications, researching company practices, and supporting brands with transparent supply chains. It's a tangible way to align your purchasing power with human rights principles, weakening the economic incentives for these abhorrent practices and making a statement that human dignity matters more than cheap goods.
And then we have Article 5, freedom from torture and cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. This is a stark one, an absolute prohibition that speaks to the deepest abuses of power.
This article sets an absolute, non-derogable prohibition. It applies broadly, not only to direct state actions like police brutality, inhumane interrogation techniques, or excessive use of force, but also to non-state abuses such as severe domestic violence, honor killings, or human trafficking practices that inflict profound physical and psychological suffering. Its reach is comprehensive, aiming to stamp out inhumane treatment in all its forms, recognizing that dignity requires freedom from such profound violations.
Can you give us an illustrative example of its application, perhaps in a less obvious context than outright physical torture, something that really emphasizes the inhuman or degrading treatment aspect?
Sure. Consider advocacy for truly humane prison conditions. This goes beyond just preventing overt physical abuse. It encompasses ensuring that inmates, regardless of their crimes, have access to basic necessities like adequate food, clean water, medical care, and humane sanitation. It also extends to preventing prolonged solitary confinement without proper oversight or denying family visits. Upholding this right in prisons reflects a society's unwavering commitment to dignity, even for those convicted of crimes, ensuring that punishment does not descend into degradation and acknowledging their continued humanity.
Article 6 states the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. This might sound abstract or even bureaucratic, but it's incredibly vital. It entitles everyone to legal recognition as a person, ensuring access to rights and protections under the law. It's about not being invisible to the system.
This is truly fundamental. Without this recognition, a legal identity, a birth certificate, citizenship individuals risk becoming stateless or, as you said, essentially invisible to legal systems. This legal invisibility can strip away fundamental protections and access to basic services, rendering other rights virtually meaningless. Imagine not being able to prove who you are to access healthcare, open a bank account, or enroll your children in school.
Where does this become most apparent and most acutely felt in today's complex and interconnected world?
Undocumented migrants or refugees in legal limbo are a prime example. They often struggle immensely to access basic services like healthcare, education, or even formal employment, not because the services don't exist, but because their lack of legal recognition creates insurmountable barriers. This highlights the urgent need for policies that provide pathways to legal status or recognition for all residents, regardless of their initial circumstances, to ensure they can exercise their fundamental human rights and avoid becoming a permanent, vulnerable underclass.
Following closely, Article 7 guarantees equal protection under the law. This mandates equal treatment before the law and protection against discrimination. So it's not enough to be recognized. You must be treated fairly by the law.
Right. This article is crucial because it directly challenges biases that can creep into legal systems, leading to profoundly unequal outcomes. Think about issues like racial profiling in policing, disparities in sentencing based on socioeconomic status, or differential application of laws based on gender or sexual orientation. This right demands that the law be applied impartially to everyone, ensuring justice isn't a privilege but a universal entitlement. It's about dismantling both overt and systemic biases that can subvert the very ideal of justice.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So equal protection under the law, a cornerstone. But how do we address those insidious, subtle biases, whether conscious or unconscious, that can still distort justice in practice? Beyond just legal frameworks, what does true equal protection demand from our institutions and even from us as individuals?
It demands constant vigilance and proactive measures. A powerful illustration is ensuring that women receive the same rigorous legal protections and equitable outcomes as men in cases of workplace harassment, domestic violence, or even in family court proceedings. This isn't just about passing gender-neutral laws. It's about the consistent and impartial application of that law by judges, police, and lawyers. It requires ongoing training for legal professionals, community education to raise awareness of rights, and robust mechanisms for reporting and investigating abuses without fear of retaliation. It's about recognizing that the law must truly serve everyone equally, irrespective of their gender or any other status, fostering a just and impartial judicial framework that actively counteracts ingrained societal biases.
Next, we have Article 8, right to an effective remedy for violated rights. This means that individuals whose rights are violated are entitled to effective remedies through competent national tribunals. It's the practical side of justice, then.
Exactly. This is the accountability clause. It ensures that it's not enough to simply declare rights exist. There must be functional, accessible, and effective mechanisms in place for redress when those rights are infringed upon. Without a right to remedy, the declaration itself would lose much of its practical force, becoming merely aspirational. It demands that states establish clear legal pathways for victims of human rights abuses to seek justice, whether that's through compensation, restoration of rights, or holding perpetrators accountable.
Could you provide an example of what that looks like in action, perhaps a scenario that illustrates the broad application of this right?
Okay, consider a situation where a company's industrial pollution severely impacts a community's air and water supply, directly violating residents' rights to health and a decent standard of living. Under Article 8, those residents can seek legal recourse. This might involve filing a lawsuit for compensation for health damages, demanding an injunction to stop the pollution, compelling the company to clean up the contamination, or even seeking criminal charges against negligent executives. This reinforces the rule of law and ensures access to justice, holding powerful entities, whether private corporations or state actors, accountable for actions that infringe upon fundamental human rights.
Article 9 provides freedom from arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. This one immediately brings to mind protecting people from authoritarian overreach and unchecked state power. It ensures due process. No one may be arbitrarily arrested, detained, or exiled.
This right is the absolute bulwark against unchecked state power. The key word here is arbitrary, meaning without due process, without legal justification, or simply at the whim of authorities. It's designed to prevent what we often call disappearances, indefinite detention without charge, or exile as a political punishment. It reinforces that even in times of crisis, the state's power to detain an individual must be strictly limited by law, transparency, and accountability, ensuring that fundamental personal freedom is protected.
Where do we see the urgency and contemporary relevance of this right today, perhaps in situations that aren't necessarily full-blown authoritarian states, but where due process is still challenged?
It's particularly relevant in situations where activists, journalists, or human rights defenders are detained without charge, often for prolonged periods, simply for criticizing their governments or exposing uncomfortable truths. This article emphasizes the non-negotiable need for transparent legal procedures. Individuals must be informed of charges, have access to legal counsel, and be brought before a court promptly. It's about ensuring that any detention is based on law and not on political whim, safeguarding personal freedom against abuse of power, even in ostensibly democratic contexts.
Article 10 follows with the right to a fair and public hearing. This is fundamental. Everyone accused of a crime has the right to a fair public hearing by an impartial tribunal and to be presumed innocent until proven guilty.
The goal here is to uphold justice by ensuring that decisions are based strictly on evidence, not on bias, public opinion, or political pressure. An impartial tribunal, meaning judges and juries free from conflicts of interest and preconceived notions, is the bedrock of a just legal system. The public aspect ensures transparency, preventing secret trials and promoting accountability in the judicial process.
We often see high-profile cases in the news that seem to attract a lot of media scrutiny and public emotion. How does Article 10 remain vitally relevant in those scenarios, when public sentiment can be so strong?
Yeah, that's a great point. In high-profile cases, intense media scrutiny and public sentiment can certainly pressure courts and even influence public perception of guilt. However, this right fundamentally demands that judges and prosecutors remain neutral, impervious to such external influences. It ensures that defendants, regardless of public perception or even past conduct, receive a fair chance to present their case, with all legal protections afforded to them. The verdict must be based on admissible evidence presented in court and due process, not on popular opinion or media sensationalism. This prevents mob justice and upholds the integrity of the judicial system.
And linked directly to that is Article 11, presumption of innocence and right to a defense. It states that individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty according to law in a public trial at which they have had all the guarantees necessary for their defense.
This principle is absolutely crucial because it flips the traditional burden of proof. It prevents premature punishment, whether legal or social, and serves as a vital safeguard against mob justice or public condemnation without evidence. It places the burden of proof squarely on the accuser, the state, in criminal cases, and ensures that individuals are treated with respect and dignity throughout the legal process until a verdict is reached. This protects against wrongful convictions and ensures a fair process.
Can you illustrate this with an example that might not involve a criminal court, but still touches on how public perception or accusation can quickly derail someone's life, and how this principle pushes back against that?
Certainly. Consider a scenario where a prominent public figure or an employee is accused of corruption or misconduct. Article 11 means they should be subjected to a transparent, impartial investigation where evidence is gathered, analyzed, and scrutinized, rather than facing immediate public condemnation, professional ostracization, or irreversible damage to their reputation without any proven facts. This principle ensures that due process and factual findings precede any judgment or punitive action, upholding the integrity of both legal and public discourse and protecting individuals from being canceled based solely on unsubstantiated allegations.
Our final article in this foundational section is Article 12, right to privacy, family, home, and correspondence. This protects against arbitrary interference with one's privacy, family, home, or correspondence, and attacks upon one's honor and reputation.
This right has become increasingly critically relevant in the digital age. While traditionally focused on physical spaces, advancements in technology have introduced new, pervasive threats to personal autonomy through mass data collection, pervasive online surveillance, and insidious data breaches. It's about protecting an individual's personal sphere from unwarranted intrusion, recognizing that a sense of private space is fundamental to human dignity and individual freedom. It also guards against defamation and unwarranted attacks on reputation, recognizing that a person's standing in society is a vital part of their identity.
This raises an important ongoing tension. How do we effectively balance the legitimate need for state security or even corporate data collection with the individual's right to privacy in our increasingly interconnected and data-driven world, especially when technology is constantly evolving.
It's a continuous dynamic challenge requiring constant reevaluation of legal frameworks. For example, comprehensive data protection laws like GDPR in Europe, or specific laws requiring tech companies to encrypt user data by default, are direct efforts to safeguard this right. These regulations aim to ensure that individuals retain control over their personal information, preventing unauthorized access by corporations or governments, and limiting how data can be collected, used, and shared. It's about establishing clear, enforceable boundaries for data collection and usage, reinforcing that personal digital space deserves the same robust protection as physical privacy, and constantly adapting to new surveillance technologies like facial recognition or predictive policing.
So we've laid the groundwork. The fundamental individual rights that ensure our basic safety, legal recognition, and freedom from cruel treatment. But what good are those rights if you can't move freely, or belong to a community, or express who you truly are? The UDHR doesn't stop at mere survival. It envisions a life of freedom, participation, and self-determination. This brings us to the next vital cluster, starting with Article 13, freedom of movement and residence. This grants individuals the right to move freely within their country and to leave and return to it.
This right is absolutely fundamental because it directly supports both personal autonomy and economic mobility. It means you should have the freedom to pursue opportunities, whether within your own borders or abroad, without arbitrary restrictions imposed by the state. This freedom allows individuals to seek education, employment, or simply a better quality of life, which are crucial for personal development and societal progress. Historically, this right was revolutionary, challenging feudal systems or restrictive travel bans common in totalitarian regimes.
So how does this right play out in the context of broader societal development, and where do we see its violation impacting communities today?
Well, think about restrictive policies that limit rural residents' access to urban job markets through internal travel permits or identity checks, essentially trapping them in poverty. Or, on an international scale, consider countries that arbitrarily deny their citizens passports or prevent them from returning home. Such policies directly violate this right, as they hinder individuals from seeking better livelihoods, accessing essential services, or simply reuniting with family. This highlights the critical need for inclusive migration frameworks, both internal and international, that respect an individual's ability to move where opportunities exist, ensuring economic freedom and fostering social justice.
Article 14 covers the right to seek and enjoy asylum. It states that everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution, though it also notes that this right may not be invoked in cases of prosecutions genuinely arising from non-political crimes or acts contrary to the purposes of the United Nations.
This right is absolutely crucial for refugees fleeing conflict, political persecution, or systemic oppression. It acknowledges the desperate situations many people face and provides a pathway for them to find safety and protection beyond their home borders. It's a recognition of the universal human need for sanctuary when one's own state fails to protect them. While states retain sovereign discretion in granting asylum, the right to seek it is universal, meaning individuals cannot be arbitrarily prevented from crossing borders to present their case.
Are there established international mechanisms that specifically support and operationalize this right, especially in light of the complex global refugee crises we face today?
Yes, very much so. International agreements like the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 Protocol are direct legal manifestations of this right. They obligate signatory countries to provide protection to individuals fleeing war-torn regions or persecution, establishing the principle of non-refoulement, meaning refugees cannot be returned to a country where they face serious threats to their life or freedom. These instruments provide a vital framework for offering sanctuary and upholding human dignity on a global scale, though their implementation often faces significant political and logistical challenges in practice.
Okay. Article 15 then talks about the right to a nationality. Everyone is entitled to a nationality, and no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality nor denied the right to change his nationality.
Nationality is far more than just a label. It confers concrete rights and responsibilities. It grants access to voting, obtaining a passport, consular protection while abroad, access to education, healthcare, and social services. Without a nationality, individuals are often in a legal limbo, severely limited in their ability to exercise other basic rights, essentially becoming non-persons in the eyes of many legal and administrative systems. Statelessness is a profound form of vulnerability.
What are the most devastating consequences when someone lacks a nationality, particularly for vulnerable populations, and how does this right address that?
Consider children born to stateless parents or individuals from minority groups whose citizenship is revoked by their government. They often face profound exclusion from basic services like education or healthcare, purely because they lack formal recognition as citizens of any country. They can't enroll in school, get legal employment, or even marry. This underscores the urgency of legal reforms in international cooperation to prevent statelessness and secure citizenship for all individuals. It's about ensuring access to fundamental rights and preventing the creation of a permanent, marginalized underclass that exists outside the protection of any state.
Article 16 addresses the right to marriage and family. It states that men and women of full age, without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at its dissolution. And importantly, the family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society, and is entitled to protection by society and the state.
This right is a cornerstone of personal freedom and social stability. It recognizes the fundamental human desire to form intimate partnerships and families, and crucially, ensures that these fundamental social units are protected by law, fostering both individual well-being and broader societal cohesion. The emphasis on equal rights within marriage was particularly progressive for its time, challenging patriarchal norms.
How has this article evolved or expanded in its interpretation over time, particularly in diverse societies that grapple with different definitions of family?
A prime example of its evolving interpretation is the recognition of same-sex marriages. While the original text referred to men and women, the underlying principle of the right to marry and found a family, free from discrimination, has led many states and international bodies to interpret this article as encompassing same-sex couples. This ensures that all couples, regardless of their sexual orientation, enjoy the same legal benefits, protections, and social recognition as heterosexual couples, such as inheritance rights, healthcare benefits, and the ability to adopt children. It's an expansion that reinforces the principle of equality within the context of marriage and family for all.
Next, Article 17, the right to own property. It states that everyone has the right to own property alone as well as in association with others, and no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property.
This right is critical because it fosters economic independence, security, and stability for individuals and families. The ability to acquire, own, and control property, whether land, a home, or intellectual property, provides a foundation for financial security, investment, and intergenerational wealth transfer, which are crucial for long-term well-being and freedom from destitution. It provides a sense of rootedness and continuity.
What's a modern, often contentious challenge to this right that we frequently hear about, especially in developing nations or areas with vulnerable populations?
Land rights disputes, particularly those involving indigenous communities, frequently highlight the ongoing relevance and challenges to this article. These communities often face unlawful seizures of their ancestral lands by governments or corporations for large-scale development projects, resource extraction, or agricultural expansion, often without free, prior, and informed consent or adequate compensation. Protecting their right to own and control their traditional territories is a vital demonstration of this principle, ensuring not just economic justice, but also cultural preservation and self-determination for these vulnerable groups.
Article 18, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This guarantees the freedom to hold beliefs, practice religion, or abstain from it, including the right to change beliefs or lack thereof, publicly or privately.
This article gets to the very core of individual liberty, the freedom of the mind. It's the freedom to believe or not believe as one chooses, without coercion or fear of persecution. It protects intellectual and spiritual autonomy, which are absolutely fundamental to human dignity and self-determination. It means the state cannot dictate your inner convictions, your spiritual path, or your philosophical worldview. It also implies the right to manifest your religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance within reasonable limits.
How does this profound freedom play out in everyday life, especially in increasingly diverse and pluralistic societies where various beliefs coexist?
For instance, allowing students to opt out of mandatory religious instruction in public schools, or ensuring that workplaces accommodate employees' religious practices, such as providing prayer spaces or flexible schedules for religious holidays, directly respects this right. It promotes pluralism by acknowledging and accommodating different belief systems, ensuring that individuals are not compelled to participate in practices that conflict with their personal convictions. It fosters an environment of mutual respect and tolerance, recognizing that diversity of thought is a societal strength.
Then we have Article 19, freedom of opinion and expression. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers.
This is absolutely fundamental, as it underpins truly democratic societies. The free exchange of ideas, even unpopular or challenging ones, is essential for informed public discourse, for holding those in power accountable, and for the very functioning of a vibrant and responsive democracy. Without it, tyranny can take root, and truth can be suppressed. It's the engine of progress, allowing for critique, innovation, and social change.
Are there specific groups who particularly rely on this right to do their essential work, and what challenges do they often face in exercising it?
Journalists, human rights defenders, and whistleblowers, especially those investigating sensitive topics like government corruption, environmental abuses, or corporate malfeasance, rely heavily on this right to inform the public. They are often the frontline guardians of transparency. However, they frequently face severe retaliation in repressive regimes, from arbitrary arrest and detention to physical violence, censorship, and even assassination. Article 19 empowers them to shine a light on injustice and hold power accountable, even at great personal risk, but its practical realization remains a constant struggle in many parts of the world.
Article 20 is freedom of peaceful assembly and association. Individuals have the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. No one may be compelled to belong to an association.
This right is all about empowering collective action and solidarity. It acknowledges that individuals often achieve more together than they can alone, providing a legal basis for organized social, political, and labor movements. It's the right to organize, to protest peacefully, to form unions, clubs, or advocacy groups. This collective power is crucial for amplifying voices, advocating for change, and holding institutions accountable, ensuring that power is not solely concentrated in the hands of the state or a few elites.
So this isn't just about individual voice, but also about the incredible power of people coming together for a shared cause. What's a powerful contemporary example of this right in action, showing its impact?
Climate activists organizing widespread protests to demand policy changes from governments and corporations are a perfect illustration. They exercise this right to amplify their impact on urgent environmental issues, drawing public attention, pressuring decision makers, and fostering a sense of collective urgency. Similarly, labor unions exercising their right to collective bargaining or organizing strikes to demand fair wages and safe working conditions demonstrate how collective assembly and association can become potent forces for social and economic justice, bringing about tangible improvements in people's lives through organized pressure.
Finally, in this section, we have Article 21, right to participate in government and free elections. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country, directly or through freely chosen representatives, to equal access to public service, and that the will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government.
This right is crucial because it truly ensures democratic accountability and legitimacy. It means that power ultimately resides with the people, who have a fundamental say in how they are governed and who represents them. It's the cornerstone of a representative system, establishing that government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed through genuine periodic elections. It also mandates that public service should be open to all, without discrimination, based on merit.
How does this right encourage civic engagement and participation, particularly among younger generations who might feel disengaged from traditional politics?
Well, when young people decide to run for local office, engage actively in political campaigns, organize voter registration drives, or simply exercise their right to vote in elections, they are directly upholding this right. These actions are vital in shaping their community's futures, ensuring that diverse voices and perspectives are heard in the decision-making process. By participating, they contribute to a more inclusive and responsive democracy, strengthening the democratic fabric from the ground up and reinforcing the idea that their voices and actions genuinely matter in the governance of their country.
We've covered the civil and political rights, the freedoms from oppression, the right to speak, and to participate. But the UDHR is incredibly progressive for its time, recognizing that true human flourishing isn't just about what governments can't do to you, but also what a society should provide to ensure a dignified life. It moves into what are often called economic, social, and cultural rights, creating the conditions for truly thriving. Expert, how revolutionary was it for 1948 to include something like the right to Social Security, Article 22, alongside freedom from torture?
It was profoundly revolutionary. Article 22, the right to Social Security, states that everyone, as a member of society, has the right to Social Security and is entitled to realization of the economic, social, and cultural rights indispensable for his dignity and the free development of his personality. This article directly supports the development of robust welfare systems and social safety nets. It recognizes that true human dignity requires more than just freedom from state oppression. It also requires access to resources that ensure basic security and enable personal growth, especially in times of need. It was a clear statement that human rights are holistic, encompassing material well-being alongside civil liberties.
What are some concrete examples of Social Security in action that directly reflect this right, and how do they benefit individuals and society?
Unemployment benefits, subsidized health care, old age pensions, and disability support programs are excellent examples of Social Security systems embodying this right. These systems help individuals and families navigate financial crises, health emergencies, or the natural challenges of aging. By providing a safety net, they significantly reduce inequality, prevent people from falling into destitution during difficult periods of their lives, and promote overall social cohesion. They represent a collective commitment to ensure that no one is left behind, contributing to a more stable and equitable society where individuals can indeed develop their personalities freely, knowing basic needs are met.
Article 23 then focuses on the right to work, just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment. It expands to include the right to equal pay for equal work and the right to form and join trade unions.
This article promotes comprehensive economic justice. It's about ensuring that labor is dignified, justly compensated, safe, and empowering rather than exploitative. The inclusion of the right to choose one's employment is critical, preventing forced labor and ensuring personal autonomy. The emphasis on fair wages and safe conditions addresses the power imbalance between employer and employee, while the right to form and join trade unions is particularly significant as it empowers workers to collectively advocate for their rights, giving them a stronger voice in shaping their working lives and conditions.
This sounds incredibly relevant to current debates around employment, especially with new economic models emerging. How do we see the ongoing relevance of this right today?
Absolutely. Think about gig economy workers advocating for minimum wage protections, fair benefits, or the right to collectively bargain for better conditions. Their struggles directly illustrate the ongoing relevance of this right as they seek to ensure that new forms of employment adhere to the fundamental principles of fair work and dignified conditions outlined in the UDHR. Similarly, ongoing efforts to combat gender pay gaps or ensure workplace safety in hazardous industries are direct applications of this article, striving to make dignified work a reality for everyone.
And after work, we need rest. Article 24 is the right to rest and leisure. This guarantees reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay.
This article is crucial because it explicitly recognizes the importance of work-life balance and the human need for recuperation. It challenges the idea of work as an endless pursuit and affirms the human need for adequate rest, personal time, and leisure activities for overall well-being, both physical and mental. It acknowledges that human beings are not just productive units, but individuals who need time for family, self-care, and personal enrichment. This was a progressive notion, especially coming out of an era of intense industrialization.
How do societies implement this right in practical terms, and what are the tangible benefits of ensuring people have sufficient rest and leisure?
Laws mandating paid vacation days, setting limits on maximum weekly working hours, or regulating overtime pay are direct manifestations of this right. They ensure that employees have designated time off to recharge, pursue hobbies, spend time with loved ones, and generally live a more balanced life. The tangible benefits are numerous. Improved mental health and reduced stress, higher productivity and job satisfaction when employees return to work, and a generally healthier, more engaged workforce. It's a win-win for both individuals and economies.
Article 25 declares the right to a standard of living adequate for health and well-being. This includes food, clothing, housing, medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. It also includes special protections for motherhood and childhood.
This article moves beyond just mere survival to what truly constitutes a dignified and stable existence for individuals and families. It directly addresses the pervasive issues of poverty and vulnerability by outlining the essential resources and services necessary for fulfilling life. It's a comprehensive vision of socioeconomic well-being, affirming that access to these basic necessities is not charity, but a fundamental human right, particularly for the most vulnerable.
So it's not just about meeting basic needs, but about thriving and having security. Can you provide a powerful example of this in action, perhaps a societal structure that embodies this comprehensive vision?
Universal healthcare systems, where access to comprehensive medical care is guaranteed for all citizens regardless of their ability to pay, perfectly embody this right. They ensure that illness or injury does not lead to financial ruin or a lack of essential treatment, providing a fundamental level of security and well-being for everyone in society. Similarly, affordable housing initiatives, food security programs, and robust social safety nets for the elderly or disabled are all direct efforts to realize the vision of Article 25, striving to ensure that every individual can live a life of health, dignity, and security, free from the constant threat of destitution.
Article 26 is the right to education. Education is a right with free and compulsory elementary education, accessible secondary and higher education, and a focus on human rights and tolerance.
This right is a powerful tool for empowering individuals and societies as a whole. Education is truly the key to unlocking individual potential, fostering critical thinking, promoting informed participation in civic life, and breaking cycles of poverty. The explicit emphasis on human rights education and fostering tolerance within the curriculum is also vital for building peaceful, inclusive, and just societies that value diversity and respect individual dignity. It's an investment in the future, both for individuals and for the collective good.
And how can we see this right being championed and implemented in ways that foster greater social mobility and break down entrenched inequalities?
Scholarships specifically designed for low-income students or government programs that subsidize tuition for higher education are excellent examples of this right in practice. By expanding access to university education and vocational training, these initiatives break down financial barriers, fostering social mobility and ensuring that talent and ambition, rather than economic background, determine access to higher learning. Similarly, initiatives that provide quality early childhood education, especially in disadvantaged communities, directly address systemic inequalities from a young age, empowering individuals with the foundational knowledge they need to succeed and thrive.
Our last one in this section is Article 27, right to participate in cultural life, arts, and scientific advancement. Individuals can freely participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits, with protection for their creative works.
This article enriches societies by acknowledging the profound importance of creativity, cultural expression, and intellectual progress to human flourishing. It recognizes that a fulfilling human life involves more than just material needs or political freedoms. It also encompasses engagement with the arts, sciences, and one's cultural heritage. It highlights that creativity and knowledge are not just for a select few, but a common heritage and a shared benefit for all humanity. This also includes the right of authors to protect their intellectual property, ensuring creators benefit from their work.
How does this right translate into practical public policy or community initiatives that make culture and science accessible to everyone, not just a privileged few?
Public funding for museums, libraries, public theaters, and open access research initiatives directly supports this right. These efforts ensure broad access to cultural and scientific resources for everyone, regardless of their socioeconomic status or geographic location. Think of free museum days, public concerts in parks, or government-funded research that is then made openly available. By promoting intellectual curiosity, fostering creativity, and ensuring that the benefits of human ingenuity are shared widely across society, these initiatives contribute to a richer, more vibrant, and more informed public sphere for all.
Finally, the UDHR wraps up with crucial articles about the kind of world we need to build for these rights to flourish and the fundamental responsibilities that come with them. Article 28 is the right to a social and international order. It declares that everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration can be fully realized.
This article really ties everything together, reminding us that individual rights don't exist in a vacuum. They require a just and stable global environment, a framework, a context where they can actually be honored and enjoyed. It's a powerful call to action for systemic change, acknowledging that the full realization of human rights depends on not just national efforts, but also global cooperation and equitable international structures. It implies that states have a responsibility to work together to create this enabling environment.
So this isn't just about individual states protecting their citizens' rights, but about a collective global responsibility for shaping the international order itself. How does this manifest in contemporary global challenges?
Precisely. Global efforts to combat climate change, for example, directly align with this right. By addressing environmental degradation and its disproportionate impact on vulnerable populations, these international efforts aim to create conditions where future generations can truly enjoy their human rights to life, health, and a decent standard of living. Similarly, international cooperation on sustainable development goals, global health initiatives, or fair trade agreements are all reflections of the aspiration for a just and stable international order that enables universal human rights realization. It's about building a world where the conditions for dignity and flourishing are accessible to all.
Article 29 is duties to the community and limitations on rights. This is a fascinating one. Everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. It also states that in the exercise of his rights and freedoms, everyone shall be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law, solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of others, and of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare in a democratic society.
This article introduces a crucial balance. It acknowledges that while individuals possess inherent rights, those rights are not absolute and exist within the context of a community. It balances individual freedoms with collective needs, emphasizing that true freedom comes with responsibility. It prevents the misuse of rights to harm others, establishing that there are legitimate boundaries to individual liberties, but only when those boundaries are legally defined and serve a clear, just purpose for the greater good of a democratic society.
So it's not just about what you can claim, but also what you owe to the community and to others' freedoms. This is key, isn't it? It prevents one person's freedom from trampling on others.
Absolutely. A perfect illustration is how freedom of expression, while fundamental, is legitimately limited by laws against incitement to violence, hate speech, or defamation. This isn't censorship. It's a necessary limitation to protect marginalized groups from harm, to maintain public order, and to ensure that one person's freedom of expression doesn't infringe upon another's right to dignity, security, and safety. It highlights the profound interconnectedness of rights and responsibilities in a just and functioning society, preventing anarchy and fostering mutual respect. The key is that these limitations must be prescribed by law, necessary and proportionate.
And finally, we arrive at Article 30, protection against misuse of rights. This is the ultimate safeguard for the Declaration itself. No state, group, or person may engage in any activity or perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein.
This article safeguards the very integrity of the Declaration. It acts as a preventative measure, ensuring that the rights outlined are not twisted, misinterpreted, or exploited by any entity, be it a state, a political group, or even an individual, to justify oppression or to strip away the freedoms of others. It means the Declaration cannot be used as a weapon against human rights. It prevents the perversion of human rights language for authoritarian or discriminatory ends. It's the UDHR protecting itself.
Can you provide an example where a government or a group might try to misuse a concept of rights and how Article 30 powerfully pushes back against that perversion?
Sure. A government, for example, cannot justify widespread surveillance or censorship by claiming it's necessary for national security if that censorship is arbitrary, lacks due process, and fundamentally undermines freedoms like the right to opinion, expression, or privacy. Article 30 makes it explicitly clear that such actions would violate the very principles the UDHR seeks to uphold. It prevents a state from arguing, we are suspending these rights to protect those rights, when the true aim is to consolidate power or suppress dissent. Similarly, a terrorist group cannot claim freedom of assembly to plan violent acts, as this would clearly destroy the rights and freedoms of others. It's the ultimate check against the subversion of human rights principles.
Walls, what an incredible journey through the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's truly remarkable how this single document, drafted decades ago, laid down such a comprehensive and aspirational blueprint for human dignity, encompassing everything from our right to simply exist safely to our freedom to engage with art and govern ourselves. It's a testament to the vision of its drafters.
It truly is. What's fascinating here is that despite being adopted generations ago, each article continues to resonate, presenting both challenges and aspirations for societies around the globe. It's not a static document confined to a museum. It's a living inspiration, constantly guiding human rights advocacy, informing legal frameworks, and reminding us of our shared responsibilities to one another across all cultures and borders.
And as you can see, every single article has incredibly practical implications, real-world examples that directly impact people's lives, whether it's about ethical consumption choices, advocating for fair wages, or ensuring access to education for every child. This deep dive has truly been a shortcut to being well-informed, not just about a historical document, but about the foundational principles that shape our world and the ongoing struggles for human dignity.
This raises an important question for you, our listener. In a world still grappling with so many forms of injustice, so many challenges to dignity, How might a deeper, more widespread understanding of these fundamental universal rights empower individuals and communities, perhaps even your community, to advocate more effectively for change and to hold institutions, both public and private, truly accountable?
That's something profound for you to mull over. We hope this deep dive has given you a clearer, richer picture of the UDHR's profound influence and its ongoing vital relevance. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.